Oh, what is up, my dudes? Just letting you boys know, I finally made a Reflex setup video just a couple of weeks ago, okay? I will leave a link down below in the description and the comments. I know there's been about 420,000 of you boys that have asked me, what's your Reflex setup, Spence? You know, how do you set the bike up? What's your 125 setup? Yada, yada, yada. And I finally made a video on it. So, be sure and check that out down below. Let's get to the video, okay? Legends is turning into Reflex. What you been smoking, Spency boy? Pretty crazy title to a video here, obviously, question mark, question mark, question mark, right? The reason why I'm saying that is because with this newest Legends update, one of the biggest new things, new features to the update is Reflex style quick time event. Whenever you over jump a jump or you come up short or you have like a harsh landing, it will do the thing like it does on Reflex where the guy sort of staggers and then he almost crashes, but you can save it. You can like turn your thumbsticks a certain direction and save it. Okay, so that's why I'm titling the video like this, because that's probably the biggest new feature to this new update with Legends. And just making it very clear right here, I am purposely over jumping basically every single jump in this video just to try to show it to you a little bit more. That's the only way you can really initiate it, is if you like purposely try to over jump stuff. That's the only way I could really get it to where I could show it off very much. And sometimes it still doesn't even do it, okay? But MX vs. ATV has added a Reflex-like quick time event where you can try to save yourself from crashing the bike after you've already landed. That's the big difference here. You know, typically, and even like in some of those milestone games that they would have, like sometimes when you would come up short or do something like that, it would play this like different animation where the dude would like stagger like he's had you know, too many Coors Lights make Supercross great again, you know what I'm saying? Like he's been staggering a little bit. But you couldn't really like save it in a way. It would just play that animation and then you wouldn't crash. You know what I'm saying? I would say this system is actually a lot more like that than it is Reflex's, you know, quick time saving sort of system. Even though this is similar to Reflex, it's not exactly like Reflex. And I did quite a bit of testing with this. Like I say, I'm purposely over jumping the jumps in this video, really trying to show you boys how far you can still jump without popping off. Sometimes you can jump really far and it doesn't even do the quick time event. You know what I mean? And you land like a really big over jump just fine. Sometimes you can over jump really far and it will play the quick time event, but you technically don't even have to like turn the thumbsticks and you're still going to be fine like it would do in some of those milestone games. You see what I'm saying? But then there's other times where you will over jump something, it'll play the quick time event, and then if you don't turn the thumbsticks the right direction, you'll pop off like 3 or 4 seconds after you landed, and then after it played that animation of the dude staggering around, you know what I'm saying? So sometimes you can still pop off without ever even getting this little chance to save it after the fact. Sometimes you get a chance to save it. Sometimes it does the animation like the dude staggering, but you don't technically even have to save it. I don't know. It's like there's like 3 or 4 different like things that can happen when you over jump something or you come up short. Like you have such a harsh impact that it's gonna, you know, you're not just gonna land it and ride out of it like normal. It's like there's 3 or 4 different things that can technically happen. You can either just totally pop off of the bike, which is a little bit more rare now than it was before, back when they didn't even have this little chance of saving it, right? The thing about it is, though, is you can't see the arrow like you can on Reflex. You basically just have to kind of read what the way the dude is staggering on the bike, and you got to basically try to lean the opposite direction of it. So similar to Reflex's system, but not exactly the same. It's almost like you mixed Reflex's QuickTime event with like Milestone's staggering animation. You see what I'm saying? It's almost like you did that right there. And what I've noticed is it seems like you can get away a lot more with over jumping jumps than you can like coming up short on a jump face that's, you know, obviously elevated off of the ground. That's where you're gonna pop off a lot more than like when you're just way over jumping like a flat jump. Tried to show that off in this gameplay some, but that's gonna activate this sort of QuickTime event a lot more when you're just over jumping and you're like flat landing versus when you're coming up short on, like, if that terrain is even raised up from flat to any degree and you're hitting a big jump into it, you know what I mean? Like you're jumping into the face of the landing of a Supercross triple or a quad on a Supercross track. That's where a lot of times it won't even give you the chance to save it. It'll just automatically pop you off anyways. Similar to Reflex in that sense. Reflex is that same way. Just because there is a QuickTime event on Reflex doesn't mean it always gives you the opportunity to save it. Sometimes it just instantly pops you off anyways. And Legends is the exact same way as that. So that's a big change, but also they've added a lot more grip feeling to the bike in the corners. They've been doing this with like every single Legends update since the very beginning, and they've done it again here with this update. It just almost feels like they're getting that to a point where they're almost losing a little bit of their inertia realism in the cornering because the bike is like so glued to the ground at this point. I don't know, it seems to me like it's lost a little bit of that, you know, kind of that natural bike feeling inertia in the corner. It doesn't feel quite as realistic as it did before, but with this update, I mean, I feel like overall, the bike just feels better. It feels less janky. You know, overall, it just feels better. But I will say the more grippy and sticky to the ground that they've made the bike in the corners, I think they're going to even obviously continue to update the game and continue to change this, so it'll probably change again, but as of right now, there's not a whole lot of inertia in the corners. It's basically like you're just glued to the ground, and I definitely think you can get away with running your tuning a lot more down the slippery side now than you could before, for damn sure. Haven't really done a lot of testing with that, but I'm just saying, it's to the point now where the bike's hardly ever even coming close to trying to slide in the corners, you know? It's like so glued to the ground, they've lost a little bit of realism there. So, but you can still over jump. It kind of depends on I've noticed on a lot of these tracks, it depends on how hard packed the dirt is, but there's still some tracks out there that you can over jump some massive ass jumps and still land it just fine. That's the one element that I still feel like they might be a little bit off on. They need to make it where, like, if you hit some, you know, 100-foot motocross tabletop and you over jump it by another, you know, 69 foot, you probably need to pop off there. You know what I mean? If you over jump a 100-foot tabletop by 69 more foot and you land a flat, you probably should pop off there no matter what. And they've definitely done something here with this update that has almost like changed that a little bit, where now it's like there's that chance for that QuickTime event to happen instead of you popping off. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, there's certain moments where it really shouldn't even give you that little QuickTime event where the dude staggers and you get a chance to save it. It really shouldn't even do that in some of the occasions that it does. You see what I'm saying? So they've almost like made the game a little bit easier in that sense. They need to be really careful with that, but that's the one thing I would change about it, is I would make it specifically when you're over jumping to flat, you need to be popping off just a little bit more than you are after this update came out. And I think they will tweak on that over time, but that's just something I want to point out. Like, it doesn't really, like, it feels like you can over jump jumps to flat. Like, that particular part of the game has become easier than any other part of the track. You know what I mean? Like, it's still really challenging when you're, like, jumping quads and you come up short, or you're, you know, jumping into the whoops, you know what I mean? You can still pop off pretty easy when you're doing stuff like that, but when you're over jumping something to flat, that kind of gets in that unrealistic, you can way over jump stuff sometimes and still land it just fine, and sometimes you'll get that little quick time event and you don't even have to lean a certain direction to save it. You know, sometimes you'll just over jump something by 69 foot, get the quick time event, and just be fine, whereas before you would have just instantly popped off. So they got to be real careful when it actually initiates that quick time event, you see what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, I think overall they're making progress with the game. They just need to be careful and not, you know, lower the skill gap of the game. They need to be careful and not cater the game too much to the casual moto gamers, where it's like hard to even pop off on a track. You know, that's the last thing you want to do, MX versus ATV, is make it to where it's hard to pop off the bike. Like, it's almost like you have to try to pop off of the bike. And there are some tracks in the game right now where it kind of feels like that, where it's like you can overjump every jump on the track wide open on a 450 and you don't pop off. But I think the hard packness of the dirt has something to do with that, and obviously the jumps, but specifically, like, if you're landing short on a jump face itself, that's when it'll really pop you off like crazy. But when you're over jumping to flat, I just don't think it quite has that same kind of pop-off system like what Untamed had, you know what I mean? Doesn't quite, like, there's some of the Supercross tracks don't even really have the same, like, danger and skill gap of Untamed. Like, it just all depends on the track now, it seems like, you know what I mean? Like, some of the tracks feel like, oh man, this is kind of like real Supercross. It's kind of hard to get around the track. And then there's other tracks where it's like, what the hell, like, I'm wide open everywhere across every jump face, and it almost feels like a milestone game on some of the tracks. You know what I mean? Because you start getting in that point where you're just wide open everywhere. You're not even worried about over jumping shit because you know you can without popping off. So they just need to be careful with that particular aspect of it, and I think they'll be fine in the future. But yeah, overall the bike's just feeling better, less janky, kind of jiving a little bit better around the track. You know, there's still a lot of clutch boosting. I think they have, like, toned that down a little bit, but overall the game is just getting better and better. But like I say, their biggest thing just needs to be, don't lose the pop-off skill gap. Whatever you do, even though you've added this reflexy type quick time event, just don't lose the pop-off skill gap. You know what I mean? That's the one thing that Legends had when it first came out that really gave it a different kind of feeling to me. It really gave it a certain kind of skill gap, a certain kind of, you know, difficulty level that I hadn't felt in a motocross, like a AAA motocross game, in a long time. So please, whatever you do, do not lose that. No matter what the casual moto gamers try to say to you, don't lose that. You know what I'm saying? It's okay to have the quick time event in there, and it's okay for it to happen every once in a while, but you definitely don't want that to take over the pop-off system. You see what I'm saying? That's all I'm trying to say here.